She walks into a crowded cafe on a late Sunday morning. Sunlight slips through the window and glints against the ink winding down her arm, black roses curling around her wrist, a small quote near her elbow that reads, "Still, I rise." People notice her before she speaks. The man by the counter stares a little too long. A mother at the next table whispers something to her friend. And somewhere between curiosity and judgment, the air shifts. But she doesn't flinch. She orders her coffee, adjusts her sleeve, and sits with the quiet confidence of someone who has learned to live comfortably in her own skin, literally. Every tattoo tells a story, but few people ever ask to hear it. Because when it's on a woman's skin, the ink suddenly means more than art, it becomes a statement, an act of defiance, a whisper of pain, or sometimes, a song of freedom. For centuries, the female body has been a canvas for everyone but the woman herself, painted by expectation, clothed by culture, and measured by eyes that were not her own. So when a woman chooses to mark her body with ink, it's more than an aesthetic choice. It's authorship. 1. Reclaiming the canvas. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a woman decides her body no longer belongs to anyone else's expectations. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, from years of hearing what she should look like, what she shouldn't wear, how she should behave. It happens after the 100th comment about her weight. After being told, "You'd be so pretty if you didn't." After learning that her body has always been a discussion topic for others, a piece of public property where society holds the pen. So one day, she walks into a tattoo studio. Not because she's reckless. Not because she wants attention. But because, for once, she wants the story written on her skin to be hers. That buzzing sound, the electric hum of the tattoo machine, is a declaration of sovereignty. It's her saying, "Enough." It's her saying, "This skin is mine now." The ancient roots of expression. Long before tattoo culture became a modern phenomenon, women used ink as a sacred form of identity. Archaeologists have uncovered mummified Egyptian priestesses from over 3,000 years ago, their bodies adorned with dotted patterns, geometric lines, and lotus designs. Historians believe those tattoos weren't rebellious, they were divine. A symbol of fertility, protection, and womanhood. In ancient Polynesian culture, tattoos were rites of passage, intricate designs that connected women to their ancestry and power. Among the Ainu women of Japan, tattoos around the mouth were considered symbols of maturity and protection, marking the transition from girlhood to womanhood. Even in early Celtic and Norse tribes, tattooing was a mark of courage and belonging. So, what happened? How did an art once sacred to women become taboo? The fall into stigma. When Western societies began to dominate cultural narratives, the female body became increasingly politicized. Religion, patriarchy, and morality converged, rewriting women's relationship with their own flesh. By the 1800s, tattooed women were viewed as curiosities. They were displayed in circuses as the tattooed lady, performing for coins while being simultaneously desired and despised. Newspapers called them immoral. Doctors wrote papers linking female tattoos to hysteria. Men could have tattoos to show bravery, women, never. A man with ink was seen as adventurous. A woman with ink was seen as fallen. This double standard has persisted for centuries. Even today, in boardrooms, classrooms, and family dinners, tattooed women are still subtly tested, asked to explain themselves, to justify the markings on their own skin. But what society labeled as defiance, psychology often reveals as reclamation. The psychology of taking back space. When women tattoo their bodies, they're not always trying to shock or provoke. They're doing something far more intimate, reclaiming ownership over space that has too often been policed, judged, or violated. Psychologically, the act of choosing how one's body looks, whether through tattoos, piercings, or fashion, is a form of self-determination. It's a cognitive assertion of autonomy, a visible statement of the internal truth, "I am not here to please you." Women's bodies have long been treated as sites of projection, beauty standards, gender roles, purity tests. A tattoo interrupts that narrative. It forces people to see her not as an object, but as an author. The skin becomes a manuscript. The ink, her pen. The moment she decides. Ask any tattooed woman about the moment she decided to get her first one, and she'll probably remember every detail, not because of the design, but because of what it symbolized. Maybe she was sitting on her bed, staring at the ceiling after a breakup, when the thought appeared, I need something to remind me I survived. Maybe she had just turned 30 and realized she'd spent her 20s trying to please everyone. Maybe she wanted to mark the birth of her child, or the death of a parent. There's always a catalyst, some emotional threshold that demands a physical manifestation. In that moment, the tattoo becomes more than body art. It becomes an anchor. A way to say, I exist, I matter, and I will remember this moment forever. Society's gaze, her reflection. The irony is that society still hasn't caught up. For all our talk about freedom and individuality, women are still measured by appearance, and tattoos often trigger outdated perceptions. At work, she's told it's unprofessional. On the street, someone assumes she's wild. At family gatherings, there's that inevitable question. Why would you do that to yourself? But if you look closer, really look, you'll see that she hasn't done something to herself. She's done something for herself. Art as autonomy. Art on skin is one of the purest acts of autonomy. Unlike clothes or makeup, tattoos can't be taken off or erased on a whim. They require commitment, courage, and acceptance. Psychologists often speak of embodied identity, the idea that the body reflects and reinforces who we believe ourselves to be. When a woman tattoos her skin, she's not just decorating her body, she's aligning her inner identity with her outer reality. For the first time, her reflection might actually feel honest. A quiet revolution. Every generation of women has found its own language of rebellion. Some marched. Some wrote. Some burned bras. And some picked up a tattoo needle. Each act says the same thing, my body, my voice, my choice. But this modern inked rebellion is quieter. It doesn't scream, it hums. It doesn't beg for approval, it exists, unapologetically. It's a revolution written in small strokes, beneath denim jackets, across collarbones, and behind ears. It's not just about beauty, it's about authorship. For thousands of years, women have been written about. Now, they write themselves. 2. The inner spark, why she gets the tattoo, expanded. Every tattoo begins long before the needle touches skin. It starts as a whisper, a feeling, a restlessness, a memory that refuses to fade. It begins in the mind, where something quietly stirs, I need to mark this moment. I need to see what I feel. For some women, that whisper comes after heartbreak. For others, after victory. But always, it begins with emotion, that electric mix of pain, power, and transformation that begs to be witnessed. When emotion demands ink. There's a point where words no longer work. Journals can't hold the weight of what you feel. Therapy helps, but still, something in you wants to etch it somewhere permanent, somewhere visible. That's where the tattoo comes in. It's not impulsive, even when it looks that way. It's not simply, I want one. It's I need to externalize what's inside me. A woman might walk into a tattoo studio after losing someone she loves, not to forget, but to remember differently. She might tattoo a date, a heartbeat, a bird in flight. Something symbolic, something sacred. It becomes a monument not made of marble or stone, but flesh. Another might do it after surviving years of silence, after abuse, or trauma, or suppression. For her, the tattoo isn't a decoration. It's a scream, one that doesn't need sound. She might ink a single word on her wrist, freedom. Or a delicate line around her scars, transforming them into something beautiful. She's not erasing the past, she's rewriting it. The psychology of transformation. Psychologists have long studied the motivations behind tattooing, but they often miss the emotional poetry of it. It's not just self-expression, it's self-assertion. When life breaks something in you, you begin searching for ways to put yourself back together. Some people travel. Some pray. Some fall in love again. And some turn their bodies into living altars, spaces to honor what they've endured and what they've become. In that sense, tattoos are the emotional fossils of transformation. They capture the version of you that refused to die. One woman might get a tattoo after beating cancer, a small, fierce phoenix rising from flames. Another might ink a compass after leaving a toxic relationship, a promise to never lose direction again. Another might simply tattoo her child's name, because love, too, deserves permanence. To outsiders, it's just a tattoo. To her, it's the geography of her becoming. The emotional archetypes. If you look deeply enough, you'll find patterns, emotional archetypes of why women get tattoos. 1. The survivor. She tattoos to reclaim her body from pain. It could be a scar she's turning into a garden, or a quote that reminds her she lived. Each line of ink whispers, "You are still here." 2. The rebuilder. She tattoos after a major life transition, divorce, loss, or reinvention. It's a physical signpost marking the beginning of her next chapter. 3. The dreamer. For her, tattoos are about vision, affirmations of who she wants to become. A word like fearless, a moon, a butterfly, symbols of hope and evolution. 4. The artist. She sees her body as a canvas. The ink is not just meaning, it's aesthetics, emotion, and imagination blended. Her tattoos are stories painted in skin tones and color palettes. 5. The rememberer. She tattoos in memory of others, a way to carry them wherever she goes. It's grief turned into something tangible, a way to touch the untouchable. Though the reasons differ, the root emotion is the same: agency. The power to say, "I choose what stays with me." When healing needs a symbol. Healing is rarely clean. It's messy, non-linear, and deeply internal, but a tattoo can become the external proof of that invisible journey. A woman once said after getting her first tattoo, "It's the only thing I've ever done for myself that didn't need anyone's approval." That's the essence. Tattoos are deeply personal, the one decision where no one else's opinion matters. They're physical proof of private healing. Psychologically, this is called symbolic resolution, transforming internal pain into external meaning. When trauma, grief, or confusion is translated into art, the brain integrates it differently. It's no longer just a wound, it's a narrative. And the moment an experience becomes a story, it becomes something you can live with. The first tattoo, a threshold moment. Most women never forget the first one. Not the sound, not the smell, not the strange mixture of nerves and calm. There's a sense of ritual in it, almost sacred. You walk in carrying the weight of something invisible, and you walk out with a mark that says, "I faced it." For some, it's small, a minimalist design on the ankle, a date on the wrist. For others, it's bold, a full sleeve, a back piece, a wild bloom of color and confidence. But regardless of size, that first tattoo often marks a psychological threshold, the moment a woman learns she can choose her own narrative. She's no longer waiting for permission to change, to express, or to define beauty. She becomes both the subject and the artist of her own story. Tattooing and emotional regulation. Here's something psychologists are beginning to understand: tattoos can actually regulate emotion. During the tattoo process, the body releases endorphins, the same natural chemicals triggered by running, laughing, or hugging someone you love. That flood of endorphins reduces pain and creates a state of calm focus. Many women describe it as meditative, a rhythm between pain and peace. For those who have felt powerless or disconnected from their bodies, that controlled sensation becomes healing. It's pain on her terms. And that changes everything. When she looks in the mirror after, the design is more than beautiful, it's earned. It says, I can handle pain. I can make it mean something. The tattoo as a time capsule. Every tattoo holds a story, not just of what happened, but of who she was when it happened. Years later, when she looks at it, she remembers not just the event, but the feeling. The way her hands trembled before the needle touched. The song playing in the background. The exact thought that passed through her mind. Tattoos are emotional timestamps, frozen versions of the woman she once was, layered beneath the woman she's become. That's why so many tattooed women say, each one reminds me of something. It's not vanity. It's memory. It's history, written in living ink. When the tattoo chooses you. Sometimes the design finds her before she finds it. A symbol keeps appearing, in dreams, on billboards, in random moments. A bird, a moon, a line of poetry. She doesn't know why she's drawn to it, only that she is. And when she finally tattoos it, she realizes why. It represented something her subconscious had known all along: strength, freedom, rebirth. In that way, tattoos become messages from the soul to the self. They're visual affirmations that bypass logic and go straight to meaning. Psychologists call this archetypal resonance, when symbols speak directly to our deepest emotional layers. The tattoo becomes a mirror of the inner world, reflecting truths too profound for words. A silent conversation with the self. In a world full of noise, where women are constantly told what to be, how to act, how to appear, a tattoo is one of the few conversations that doesn't involve anyone else. It's intimate. Private. Intentional. She sits with herself, chooses a design, chooses a placement, chooses pain. Every choice says, I am listening to myself. That's what most people never understand. It's not rebellion. It's communication. A language that's older than speech and more permanent than thought. 1,000 reasons, one truth. When you ask 100 tattooed women why they did it, you'll get 100 answers. But beneath every reason, aesthetic, emotional, spontaneous, or spiritual, there's one unifying truth: she wanted to feel like herself. That's the psychology at the heart of it all. To feel whole. To see herself reflected in her own body. To make the invisible visible. It's not the ink that changes her, it's what the ink represents: choice, meaning, identity. And that's something no one else can define for her. 3. The pain that heals, expanded. There is a strange, almost sacred alchemy in pain. For most people, pain is a warning, a signal to avoid, escape, or recoil. For tattooed women, it becomes a language, a teacher, and sometimes, a healer. The first touch of the needle is startling. The skin tingles, the muscles tighten, and the mind reacts instantly. Yet, as the buzzing continues, a curious transformation begins. The pain becomes a rhythm, a pulse, a meditation. It's paradoxical. The thing that hurts the most often ends up giving the most relief. The controlled pain paradox. Psychologists describe this as controlled pain, a phenomenon where pain experienced voluntarily produces emotional and physiological benefits. When life inflicts trauma, grief, or heartbreak, pain is usually unpredictable, invasive, and disempowering. It hits without consent, leaving scars that often feel like imprisonment. The tattoo reverses that. Every line etched into skin is chosen, intentional, and precise. It is her body saying, I am in control now. The needle becomes a tool for reclaiming power, for mastering sensations that once belonged only to others. This is why trauma survivors often gravitate toward tattoos. The needle offers a strange comfort, a sense of agency in a body that may have once felt violated, powerless, or fragmented. The body responds. Science supports what tattooed women have long known intuitively. When the needle pierces the skin, the body releases endorphins, natural chemicals that reduce pain and promote calm. Adrenaline floods in, heightening focus and awareness. The brain enters a meditative state, balancing anticipation, sensation, and reflection. For women who have experienced disconnection from their bodies, survivors of abuse, neglect, or chronic stress, this sensory engagement is profound. It reconnects mind and flesh in a way that is both visceral and symbolic. It's no longer pain imposed by life, it is pain embraced, curated, and transformed into something meaningful. Healing beyond the surface. Tattoos heal more than skin. A woman with scars on her arm may ink flowers across them, turning remnants of suffering into symbols of resilience. A survivor of assault may choose a design that reminds her of her strength, not her fear. A woman recovering from loss might create a celestial peace, stars and moons that whisper of guidance, continuity, and hope. The physical sensation of pain blends with emotional release. Many describe crying mid-session, tears not of anguish, but of liberation. The psychological concept here is somatic catharsis, releasing emotional tension through physical experience. The tattoo session becomes a ritual of renewal, the past is acknowledged, the body is honored, and the self is reclaimed. The needle as ritual. Pain in the tattoo studio is ritualized. Unlike injury or trauma, this pain has purpose, narrative, and meaning. It is intentional, rhythmic, and finite. A woman sits in a chair. She takes deep breaths. She focuses on the design, the shape, the color. Every prick of the needle is deliberate, part of a story she is telling herself. The repetition is meditative. The sensation is grounding. The process allows her to feel, fully and deeply, in a body that may have been numbed by past experiences. It is a way of reclaiming embodiment, the physical realization of survival and self-possession. From pain to empowerment. Once the session is complete, the transformation is subtle but undeniable. The pain that once seemed daunting becomes a marker of strength. She can trace the lines, touch the ink, and remember that she endured, and she chose to endure. There is empowerment in that act. The body becomes proof of resilience. The skin is a living testament, I survived, I decided, I created. Psychologists call this embodied mastery, when the experience of controlled pain produces confidence, clarity, and self-efficacy. For tattooed women, every session reinforces the narrative. I am the author of my own experience. I determine what my body feels and what it means. Pain as emotional mirror. Tattoo pain also functions as a mirror for emotional experience. A woman may find herself confronting memories, grief, or fear during the session. A line of ink might coincide with a memory, heartbreak, betrayal, or triumph. This simultaneous experience of physical and emotional sensation allows integration. Instead of repressing pain, she can acknowledge it, translate it into art, and move forward. The tattoo becomes an externalized representation of internal struggle. The skin speaks where words cannot. The transformation of identity. After enduring the session, a woman often notices a change in her posture, gaze, and sense of self. She walks taller. Her voice carries a new resonance. Her reflection becomes familiar in a way it may never have been. The inked skin is more than decoration. It is a physical affirmation of selfhood, a statement that she can endure, create, and reclaim her body and life. Many tattooed women describe a quiet confidence that follows. A sense that they no longer need permission to exist fully, to express freely, or to define their own beauty. The transformation begins inside, but the skin bears witness. Stories written in pain. Every tattoo tells a story of endurance. A mother inks a tiny heartbeat for the child she lost, tracing the rhythm of love through grief. A survivor inks flowers over self-harm scars, reclaiming ownership of her skin. A woman inked a rising sun to mark the day she left an abusive partner, the sun symbolizing rebirth, hope, and courage. Each story blends physical pain with emotional release. The tattoo becomes a living memoir, a permanent record of the moments that shaped her. This is why tattooed women often speak of the experience as life-altering. The pain is temporary, the meaning is permanent. Pain, permanence, and psychological safety. The permanence of tattoos adds another layer to the healing process. When a woman experiences trauma, she often feels a loss of control over her body, her choices, her narrative. A tattoo is a controlled, permanent alteration. She decides its placement, design, color, and meaning. The permanence reinforces safety. This is mine. I chose it. No one can take it away. This act of control over permanence translates into emotional security. It teaches a profound lesson: some things can be altered, shaped, and mastered, even if only by her. The tattoo as alchemy. In many ways, tattoos are emotional alchemy. They transform. Pain empowerment. Trauma narrative. Scar beauty. Fear agency. Through needle, ink, and intention, the tattooed woman turns suffering into art, chaos into coherence, and survival into visible proof. It is a process both sacred and secular, deeply personal, yet universally resonant. In that sense, every tattooed woman carries not just art on her skin, but a testament to resilience, courage, and transformation.